It's a Saturday as we film this, so that's why there's more people, but I imagine if we came around a weekday, it's gonna have more creepy vibes.
There are so many places in the world that it's honestly hard to keep track of them all. Because of this, sometimes you stumble upon a really unique or odd abandoned place that seems like there's much more going on here than you're told. And honestly, you'd be right about that. From failed monuments to whole cities being abandoned and much, much more. So join us as we reveal to you 8 of the most unusual abandoned places that really exist. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 8. Igloo City.
Sorry, my bad. And here is the igloo.
You'll find this first place in Cantwell, Alaska. It's called Igloo City and it's an abandoned place that'll definitely grab your attention. Mainly because it's literally a giant igloo, but it wasn't built for the first or second reason you're likely thinking. Rather, this was meant to be a hotel for tourists. One that was designed to deliver the feeling of being in an igloo without actually having to build one yourself or having to go and deal with the various cold temperatures. Which is honestly kind of nice when you think about it. It's a tourist trap for people to lodge in as they explore Alaska, and it's something that they can easily talk about with friends. But the problem was that the person who designed and started construction of the building didn't understand how to build a place up to code. You see, every hotel that you go to, large or small, has to comply with certain things in the state and country guidelines in terms of what's allowed for the hotel, which is meant to keep people safe from harm and states from liability. And guess what? The very shell of this igloo broke a lot of codes. Many have tried to fix the place up to finish construction, but it's never happened. Something always gets in the way. So thus, the remains of this giant igloo remain in Alaska for all to see. Number 7. Carey Furnaces.
We were in charge of a volcano, and it was a controlled volcano. We would put materials into the volcano. It would tell us when they were heated and turned into a liquid.
Carey Furnace is a former blast furnace, located along the Monongahela River in the Pittsburgh area industrial town of Swissvale, Pennsylvania, and it had formed a part of the Homestead Steelworks. The various furnaces were built in 1884 and were eventually shut down nearly a century later in 1982, though not before proving themselves as a very worthy place to do work. But eventually, they were deemed out of date, and so deconstruction of the various furnaces began. But then they stopped, and now furnaces number 6 and number 7 remain on site and perfectly visible for everyone to see and explore. While they lingered, people started to realize that they had a monument on their hands, and thus a nonprofit got filed to make it a true national landmark and was approved. The people still maintain the furnaces to help ensure the history of the area is maintained and a key landmark is left standing. Number 6. Agrasan Key Baoli.
This is the famed Agrasan Kai Baoli, and it was built to capture precious water in the dry climate of the North Indian Plain.
Located in New Delhi, India, the Agrasan Key Baoli is a step well that was made over 500 years ago to help the city in times of need. If you're curious as to how that works, it was constructed so that you could go and get water from within the earth at any point in time. So if there was a drought, people wouldn't have to worry about a lack of water, but after the invention of the water pump, the place has been abandoned, which ironically has opened up new mysteries about the place. Mainly, there are no known historical records to prove who built Agrasan Key Baoli. Though some say it was originally built by the legendary King Agrasan, and the present architecture hints at it being rebuilt in the 14th century during the Tughlaq period of the Delhi Sultanate. The stepwell is now a protected site in New Delhi, but that doesn't stop people from going inside of it when they're able. Plus, there are stories of shifting shadows and other things that make this abandoned place all the more intriguing. Number 5. Oakpo Land.
So it's got that decaying, death-like sound. It's kind of scary.
You've no doubt heard of various theme parks and amusement areas being shut down over the years. But in regards to the South Korean park known as Oakpo Land, it has a slightly different story to tell. And it's not exactly the best one. You see, early on in its life, Oakpo Land was one of the most popular amusement parks in all of Asia. Yet it was shut down and became a ruin before being demolished. Not the ending you might have expected when we started this entry. The reason for this quick change, if you will, was because of a duck-themed roller coaster. The ride itself was fine and actually one of the main attractions for the park, but then it became the home of a fatal accident. A duck cart had derailed and plummeted to the ground, killing the person inside of it. The police did an investigation and then labeled it a freak accident. That is, until a second accident occurred and another person was killed. The owner of the park fled as a result, and the park was shut down. People actually kept going to the park until it was demolished in 2011, but the stories of it and what happened to it still remain. Number 4. Cape May Bunker.
So this this battery, was part of the coastal protections to defend our assets along the Delaware River.
In New Jersey in 1942, during the Second World War, a massive bunker was built on the beach of Cape May for a specific purpose, to defend the beach in case of invasion. The round turrets on either side held 6-inch guns. The horseshoe-shaped structures, which can be seen out in front at low tide, are Panama mounts. These were built in July 1941, prior to the construction of a more permanent bunker, and held 4 155mm Coast artillery guns. A sister bunker stands across the bay in Lewis, Delaware. Don't think that America was being paranoid about this. It was documented that this was a real plan by the Axis powers because they knew the US was a serious threat. Thus, bunkers and defense posts were made along the coast like these. But in the case of Cape May Bunker, it's still there. No, really, it's still there to this day, even though it's been many decades since the end of the war. However, because of its location close to the ocean, it may not be there for much longer. Because when it was built, the ocean didn't touch the bunker, and yet now, its waters rush right up to it. So the ocean might just consume this abandoned building in the next few years. Number 3. Hobbit House.
One man's fantasy build began in 1989, 11 years in the making. Now it sits deserted and apparently never quite completed.
No, we're not going to New Zealand for this entry. Rather, we're going to Wiltshire, England. It's here you'll find a hobbit house that's known as Colin's Barn. Colin Stokes was a simple farmer who just wanted to build a simple farm of rectangular shape for some hay to be stored. But as he started to build everything, he realized that he truly liked dry stone wall building, which happens. So he, just kept building, and building, and building until eventually the hobbit house you see now was done. He admits, he kind of got carried away. Again, it happens. Though it's known as a hobbit house to some, Colin prefers to think of it as a barn and just that. He only put a room on the top floor eventually, so he could rest after doing hard labor in the barn all day. Ironically, he would have still been in the house to this day if it wasn't for the fact that he found his land next to a quarry in the 1990s, and the noise got so loud that he decided to leave. Number 2. The Buzlucha Monument.
Completed in 1981, it was built as an iconic national monument to glorify the Communist Party.
The Buzlucha Monument is a place of history, but not the history that people like to remember or want to remember. Yet it remains because it's honestly just really massive. You see, this monument was constructed in the Cold War. Bulgaria was under communist rule, and the government decided to build this massive structure to house the Communist Party within the country, which, to be clear, was something many communist nations did during that time. It was basically a rule. But the Cold War ended eventually, and communism with it. And so Bulgaria found itself with a massive building with no true purpose. So it was closed down to the public in 1989 and remains abandoned to this day. End of story? Not so much. Because the people hated this building so much because of what it represented, they decided to do the least amount of work to maintain it. Meaning, they just let nature deal with it. And Mother Nature always wins in fights like this. The building is now swarmed with plant life, and after some people stole some roof panels, it allowed nature to literally rain on this building's parade and fill it with snow in the winter months. Number 1. Robert Bruno Steel House.
I'm Robert Bruno. This is my steel house. I've been working on it for about 28 years, and hopefully we'll be finished in about 1 more.
Found in Ransom County, Texas, the Robert Bruno Steel House is a home that was indeed made by a man named Robert Bruno. The reason it looks like it does is because Bruno wanted to make a truly unique home, and that's what he did, for the most part. The sad thing is that Bruno never got to finish his work as he passed away in 2008. He left the property to his friend who refused to finish the work or lend it out for people to live in because he felt that's not what Bruno would have wanted. But you can still go visit the home and see the care and technique that was used to go and make the house feel out of this world, including using steel, wood, and even stained glass to really make it stand out. Though for the record, we don't recommend you making your own homes like this. So, what do you think? What do you think of this look at these very unique abandoned places that really do exist? Were you surprised by just how special these abandoned places are? Are you tempted to go visit them yourself? Or are you just good looking at these places from your own home? Let us know in the comments below, be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.